that leads me to an interesting point, and this is not meant to be a criticism of Bill Belichick. And to those of you who think that I've got some bias against him, I sat in this seat last Thursday or Friday or someday ending in Y, because after 10 weeks of football season going into 11, I can't remember what I said, where I said it, when it's all one big continuous blur. But I'm a firm believer that Bill Belichick needs to walk into the Hall of Fame without hesitation, without delay, that anything other than him going straight in is a travesty and removes any remaining credibility that the ever-changing group with ever-shifting rules that determines who does and doesn't get a bronze bust and can't, and it just makes them completely inept and disqualified if they don't put him in. But you use that word authentic, and I'm always a firm believer that we all should be true to who we are and what we are. Life is hard enough without pretending to be something you're not. And I can't imagine doing that. You have a nature that you're suppressing because you feel like you should, to please whoever. Mom, dad, family members, friends, what you think you need to be to get to where you want to be. You're not being yourself along the way. And that just makes life hard because you're not being who you are. Just be who you are. Life, trust me, is so much easier if you just are who you are and you're not caught up in what am I supposed to be. And I say that because here's the question. Bill Belichick, who only ever acted that way after they won a Super Bowl. And even then, it felt restrained and awkward when he did it.
Right. That's right.
Here's the question. And you're in a better position to know the answer to this than I am. Is everything that we saw from Belichick during games, after games, not in the tunnel, welcoming, celebrating, smiling, laughing, enjoying himself, enjoying what he's accomplished, and not tormented by on to Cincinnati? How much of that is his true, authentic self, and how much of that is the person he thinks he needs to be, the persona he needs to project in order to, brick by brick, build the house that he's trying to build this season that results in a Super Bowl championship? Do you think that's really who he is? Or do you think he's suppressing who he really is?
Bill, we're talking about, because it's funny. When you asked, and I'm glad it recovered, when you asked, here's the question, I saw your mouth moving, and then the sound went out, but then the sound came back. So the sound came back, and I heard on to Cincinnati and the other stuff. So you were asking about Bill. Is Bill Belichick authentically that guy, or is he pretending or just performing? I'd say performing.
Right.
I'd say there's a lot of performance in that, because his position was, I'm talking to the players. A lot of times his press conferences were, I'm sending a message to the players, I'm sending a message to the fans, I'm protecting information from the other team. I can't tell you how I really feel about it because I'm always strategizing, I'm always game planning. And the real Bill would trickle out at times. But most of the time when he was in front of a microphone, he absolutely was not telling you what he feels. And that is part of, you said he should walk into the Hall of Fame. That's part of his genius. Part of his genius is, hey, I got some things going on. You have no idea what I'm going to bring to this game. And I'm going to do something that you're not expecting. I'm going to do something that I haven't mentioned. You're not going to be able to detect any clue of what I'm planning for. And it obviously worked for him, 6 Super Bowl titles, but that's not, I've seen enough of Bill Belichick away from the microphone to know that's not the real Bill Belichick standing there giving press conferences.
I mean, he still seems to have a certain amount of miserable guy in him. But I hear from time to time, and I used to hear when he was coaching the Patriots, because now he's not nearly as relevant to us as he was, but it is relevant to see how this experiment goes in North Carolina. It is relevant to see whether or not one team, 31 teams can shout no, one team whispers yes, and he's back in the NFL. But, people would say, oh, he's so much fun when you get him away from football. And that always made me sad to hear that, because it underscores this idea. You can have fun in your life. You can have fun in your job. If you're not having fun in your job, if you can't be the supposedly life of the party, and I still would have to see it to believe it and experience it to understand it, if you have to pivot into something else, it's just sad. It's sad that you have to go through life that way. And he apparently made the calculation at some point that to get to where I want to be, so I can paint 8 rings on my boat, and I can flash them around from time to time in people's faces, and I can walk right into the Hall of Fame. I'm going to suppress what I would like to be in the name of this greater goal. And at some point, I think his meter was screwed up because, and this may be another explanation for it too. I'm kind of stumbling into it as we have this conversation. I feel like he tried to always have an emotional detachment from his players, because if he didn't, it would be too hard to cut the guys who needed to go, the pieces in the machine that needed to be replaced. And I think there are very, very few players that he accidentally became emotionally attached to. And the list possibly begins and ends with Troy Brown. Quite possibly that's it. But he never got attached to Tom Brady. And I think there was always, as things are going well, this is the other thing too. People don't let themselves enjoy when things are going well. When things are going well, he's always worried about the end. And I think he was always worried about the day that he was going to have to do the Drew Bledsoe calculation to Tom Brady. And so he had Tom constantly afraid of the day that Bill was going to do the Drew Bledsoe calculation to Tom Brady. And that's how Brady got the job. I know it was Mo Lewis technically, but it's been well documented. Bill Belichick was thinking about and planning to put Drew Bledsoe on the bench and go with Tom Brady even before that Jets game made it an obvious outcome. But I just wonder, Michael, whether that's part of it, that he wouldn't and couldn't hug the players and celebrate with the players because he was afraid he couldn't then do what a football coach has to do and tell players all the time, we have to move on without you.
Well, Mike, that's what I'm talking about with Mike Vrabel. Vrabel sat in Bill Belichick's meetings for 8 years as a player. 8 years. 3 Super Bowl titles. Heard a lot of lectures, a lot of summaries, a lot of, hey, this is what the game plan is. A lot of, hey, this is how we handle business when there's controversy. This is how we have fun. He sat there, he absorbed it, he took notes, but during that time, he's thinking, well, I agree with that. I don't agree with that. And if I ever get a chance to run my own team, I'm going to do it in a different way. It's like you sitting there saying, hey, when I become the president of NBC Sports, this is what I'm going to do. Like you appreciate the position that you're in, but you have your own ideas of how it goes. And a lot of players weren't like that. I remember one story I heard about Vrabel, and Belichick is there in a team meeting. He's sitting next to Vrabel, I'm talking about. Vrabel is sitting next to Teddy Bruschi. Belichick says something that the rest of the team, they don't nod their heads, they don't shake their heads, they just write it down. And Vrabel goes to Bruschi and says, that's bullshit. Now, just like, wow. I don't agree with that, even though it's the great Bill Belichick. And so he was the guy who would do that while he played. He would respectfully challenge Bill. He would make fun of Bill in meetings. And so now, as an experienced coach who's been fired, and I think that helps him, believe it or not, that he was fired in Tennessee. He saw how things happen at the highest level. Ownership has one vision. The coach has another vision. Bring in a general manager. Everybody's not aligned. I think being fired really helped him boil down what's important to him, what he has to have at the next job, what's a big deal, what's not a big deal. And he brings that to the players, and they feel it. They feel like he's one of them, although he's the guy. I'm sorry, it's not Elliott Wolf. It is not Matt Groh and the other people who were in the front office last year. Mike Vrabel is the guy. He's the number one decision maker in Foxborough. If you're on the roster, you're on the roster because Mike Vrabel wants you there. And if you're traded, it's because Mike Vrabel wants you traded. So he still has the same power that these other, as you say, detached coaches have. But he has a way of connecting with the players when they're in front of him.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.